The body of a young woman was dug up. She was dressed in gorgeous clothes and adorned with jewelry, clearly the daughter of a wealthy family. The two grave robbers thought they were going to make a fortune, but as they were looting the jewelry from the corpse, the cemetery caretaker suddenly appeared. Armed with a weapon, he threatened the two men into handing over all the stolen treasures. Strangely enough, however, the caretaker only chased them away without calling the police. After watching their figures disappear, the caretaker jumped into the grave and skillfully checked the woman's mouth for gold teeth. The middle-aged man was known as Old John, and he was actually a grave robber himself. Addicted to gambling, he had lost most of the treasures he had stolen. The loot from this time was not enough to pay off his gambling debts, and his creditors had warned him that if he failed to pay the remaining money within a week, they would put him inside a coffin. It seemed Old John's luck had not yet run out, and an opportunity soon presented itself. A wealthy captain had died unexpectedly and was to be buried right in the cemetery he managed. The captain not only had a mouthful of gold teeth, but also a sword personally given to him by the king, which was extremely valuable. Filled with joy at the thought of the treasures soon to be his, Old John could not wait to dig up the captain's coffin on the very night of the burial. When he pried it open, he was stunned by what he saw. The coffin was completely empty. It turned out that a swarm of rats had gnawed a hole in the side of the coffin and were dragging the captain's body into an underground tunnel. Old John immediately scrambled forward and reached out to grab it, but only managed to get hold of a single shoe. Watching the body being dragged farther and farther away, Old John's mind went completely blank. In a daze, he could almost see his creditors nailing shut his coffin. Determined, Old John crawled into the deep, dark tunnel after the rats. He struggled forward through the complex cave-in-prone passages, nearly being buried alive. When he finally dragged himself out of the dirt, a massive horde of rats surged toward him from behind and engulfed him at once. In a panic, he raised his weapon and fired wildly, only to shoot himself in the foot by accident. Just then, a giant rat king suddenly appeared. Old John quickly hid, enduring the excruciating pain without daring to make a sound. When he shone his flashlight again to look, the rat king was right behind him. In desperation, Old John shot and wounded the beast before fleeing for his life, only to accidentally fall into a deep pit. Looking around carefully, Old John realized he seemed to have fallen into an underground palace, with human bones scattered all around. As he panicked, however, things took a turn for the better. He spotted a jeweled ring among the remains. It turned out that after the rats finished feasting on the bodies, they dumped all the bones here, and the buried treasures had ended up here along with them. Old John's greed instantly overcame his fear, and he began collecting the scattered jewels, including the captain's ceremonial sword. He then started searching for an exit, but everywhere his flashlight beam fell was a terrifying sight. Behind him stood a huge cult statue, revealing that this place had once been used for cult activities. Directly facing the statue was a skeleton in a kneeling worshiping position, with a pure gold necklace set with gemstones hanging from its chest. Old John's eyes lit up immediately. He stepped forward cautiously, muttering constant praises to the gods as he removed the necklace. At that very moment, the mummy suddenly came back to life, grabbed Old John and tried to take back the necklace. The mummy dragged its half-body toward him, but fortunately, it had no legs, giving Old John a chance to escape. He shone his flashlight down the tunnel and miraculously spotted light at the end. It had to be the exit. Overjoyed, Old John crawled toward the light while praying, but upon reaching the end, he was overcome with terror. He discovered in despair that the bright light was only the reflection of a plaque that read, "Rest in peace." He had crawled straight into another person's coffin. Not wanting to be buried alive, Old John banged frantically on the coffin, hoping someone would hear his cries for help, but the enraged rats gave him no chance. Attracted by the noise, they swarmed over him at once and the tunnel fell silent once more. Before long, the coffin lid was opened. The two grave robbers from earlier had returned, and they recognized the body as Old John, the cemetery caretaker. Just as they reached out to take the gold necklace, Old John's body suddenly moved. The two men trembled with fear. A large black rat crawled out of Old John's mouth. By then, he was nothing but an empty shell, his body completely hollowed out by the rats.